Hi, this is Glenda, and today I'm going to be making a peacock feather soap. I'm actually very excited about doing this soap because it was about a year ago exactly since I made my first peacock feather soap, and I'm gonna put a picture of that on the screen so you can see it. And while I was happy with how that turned out, I wasn't willing to do all the work for the eye of the feather again. It was actually quite time consuming. It was done with melting pot and cold process soap. So let me blend this and I'll tell you more about it. Alright, I have very rich in emulsion. I want to stay as liquidy as possible, and I'm going to go ahead and add my fragrance. This fragrance, I have it ready. It's a mix of my own. I'm not really sure how it's gonna turn out. I mean, so far it smells good. It has jasmine, it has musk fragrance formulator, it has amber fragrance formulator, and it has frankincense or myrrh, which actually is it's good, but it's not very strong on its own for CP soap. So I'm going to add it. Alright, so I just stirred the last part of it, and it looks like it has come to light trace. So I'm going to split this in about maybe half, actually not half, but I'm just gonna pour some of this into a separate container, and this is gonna be the green portion. Like I was telling you, the first time I did it, I liked it, but I wasn't very happy with it, with how much work it took to do the core. Then the second time I made it, it was a disaster. I was very unhappy with it, and I'll show you a picture. I'll put it on the screen of what that looked like. Now, all of the fragrances that I chose are supposed to behave well. I was surprised because I'm like, jasmine really is a floral, but all the reviews in the description from the seller said that it didn't accelerate. I can see that my batter is beginning to get thick, and that's okay because I'm not making swirls with it. I'm making layers, and to make layers, you don't want it to be too fluid either. You need for the butter to have some consistency. At least that's what I feel. Alright, I'm gonna blend this. I put about a 1/4 teaspoon of green pigment in this, and I feel that it should be slightly darker, but it's getting quite thick, and I'm afraid of it getting too dark, or actually I'm afraid of it getting thicker. So I think I'm just gonna leave it as it is. I'm gonna use a tall and skinny mold that I made. So I'm going to start by putting some of the soap, and as you can tell, it's quite thick and it feels really warm, which means one of my fragrances has indeed accelerated it. It's fine though. It's going to be fine, I hope. Crossing my fingers. Alright, so first I just put one layer down there, and now I'm going to insert some dividers, and the purpose now is to do different layers of green and of the uncolored batter, and just alternate them. Let me see what's the best way to do this. Because it is somewhat thick, I may not need to, yeah, it's not going deep into the butter, but it's definitely a lot thicker than I anticipated. And I did change my recipe for this. I'm using a different one that has more fluid oils. But oh well. You know, the same thing that happened to me with the Superman soap, I'm afraid it's gonna happen with this, that when I get the dividers out, I'm going to have a lot of pockets. So I'm adding some oil to the batter here to make it more fluid. Maybe that will help. I don't know. I'm also considering aborting the design, but I've been looking so much forward to it. I don't think I'm ready to do that yet. So I'll see if I can make it work. Alright, so this is supposed to be like a secret feather swirl, where you alternate the layers, and later you come with your swirling tool and create a feather effect. We'll see how that goes here. But I was gonna tell you, a few years ago I was making jewelry and I did, you know, craft shows. Well, one of the earrings that I like to make was a peacock feather pair of earrings, and I was buying my peacock feathers from Hobby Lobby. But one time I saw in Craigslist that somebody had posted some peacock feathers for sale. So I contacted the person to ask about the price, and she told me how much it was. She lived kind of far from me, and I was considering whether the trip would be worth it. When she said that if I was interested, she also had a peacock feather tail. And what do you mean? She's like, well, all the tails from a peacock. Yeah, what am I saying? All the feathers from the tail of a peacock. And I asked her how much, and the price sounded good. So I met up with her. I went to her place, and I asked her how. I kind of wanted to know, but I also was afraid to know, how does she have a whole tail, you know, all of the feathers from the tail. And she told me that it was one of her peacocks got scared during transportation. When they put him in the truck, he got spooked, and out of that shock, he simply just, all of his feathers drop. And she said that sometimes that happens. It's not very often that it happens, but sometimes it does happen. And I ended up buying it, and I used several of the feathers. But when I was there, she asked me if I was interested in getting some feathers, or well, she was telling me first about a peacock that she used to have that had different color feathers, meaning that, you know how the eye of the peacock feather has like a teal, like a bluish color. Well, for this one peacock, that color was purple instead of turquoise or blue. And I'm like, how does that happen? Well, apparently, as I later looked it up, it's the result of mutation. I ended up buying a few of the purple feathers, or the purple eye feather, and it was interesting because this mutation, it also causes the feather to fade, so they change colors as the seasons changed. And I had them, actually a couple of them, I left them in my cart on purpose once I learned about this, and it looked like the sun had caused them to become lighter color, like a brownish color. Oh, and another characteristic of this peacocks with this mutation is that they don't have, the feathers don't have as much iridescence as the regular peacocks. So I still have a couple of those feathers, and I'm going to show you when I'm done pouring this, so that you, in case you haven't seen one, you can tell what it looks like. Alright, I'm gonna attempt to do the swirl for the Peacock Feather, the feather swirl, and all I have to do is just put it in the middle and go down and then come back up on one side. So I'm going to do it with strength and fast motion since my layers are so thick now. Okay, so I finished filling it up. So now I'm going to insert the eyes of the Peacock Feather, which I highly doubt it's gonna come out looking like a feather, but maybe this will make it look. So I made this with soap dough, and this time I learned my lesson from last time, so I just did it in small sections. Some of them look better than others, and what I'm going to do is that I'm going to insert it. Alright, and so now I'm just going to try to cover that with the rest of the soap, and then with the leftover soap that I have, I'm gonna cover that, and this is pretty much it. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do something on top. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Probably not. I'm not sure. I don't know. Well, welcome back. It's been I think more than 24 hours, more like 26 hours since I made this soap, so it's time to unmold it, and actually I'm a little bit nervous. Not a little. I'm actually quite ready to be disappointed. I'm trying to keep my expectations really low so that I'm not too disappointed by this. So I don't think it was entirely ready to come out, but I'm way too impatient for this design to see. It looks like the stuff that I had written on the liner when I was cutting it has transferred to the actual soap. You can see there the ink. So I'm gonna have to shave that part anyway. Alright, now the moment of truth. Ta-da! Not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. Obviously I lost the definition there, but you can sort of see a feather like design there. Now this one is looking more wobbly. Maybe I'll try next time without fragrance, or if you have any suggestions on a good fragrance that doesn't accelerate trace. I think I figured out which one was the culprit on mine after looking at all of the fragrances I combined. And as far as the smelled, it's quite bad. I don't like it. Hopefully it gets better as it ages. I'll put it in the comments if so, or I'll make a note of it if it does. Bye.